Well, I wanna know, I wanna know, I want to know, I just wanna know. Well, I wanna know, I wanna know, I want to know, I just wanna know. I wanna know, what makes me love you so. Well, I need to know, I need to know.
So, Steve, tell us about your experiences in working with your father.
Wow, when I think about Dad and you say my experiences, the first thing that comes to mind is when I was a kid and being in the dark room with him. And I guess that was my introduction to photography. Not only with him taking the portraits, but actually being in the dark room. I think about putting this piece of paper into this first tray and magically an image appears from nothing. And I think at that point I was more or less hooked on photography, not only from the photography aspect, but from the darkroom aspect also. My dad was quite a guy. His personality and his persona, it just had a way of connecting with all people. And I liked that about him also, because I also remember people coming by just to talk with him. And from a kid's perspective, I'm like, why are they coming to talk to my dad? And he was well known and his information was correct, and they wanted to follow his advice. And like I say, he had a good personality and he connected well with the people.
Mrs. Johnson, can you tell us how Mr. Johnson got in? How did he become a photographer? He was a teacher, a musician, and so how did he get into photography?
Well, as far as I know, this was part of his education at AM&N. He was introduced to that photography work, even though he majored in science. So that was his highlight, and that was his hobby. And so out of the hobby, he made his living.
So how long has the Johnson Studio been in existence?
Including the
earlier years.
earlier years, I think it was about 1952. He went to Walnut Street. He left the Browns and went to the Walnut Street. And he was just out there and willing and ready to do what he wanted to do.
And this is one of the longest running businesses run by African Americans in the Arkansas Delta. Mm-hmm. And that is indeed a very a good thing.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about his personality and how he was involved in the community and what he did?
Well, he had a way of dealing with people, meeting people, and he's very stern. And of course, he enjoyed being around people and making them feel that he was a part of them. That's how he became what he was.
Oh, dear, that started, as she mentioned, in high school. Daddy wanted us not only have book knowledge, but also common sense, and he wanted us to experience that life on Walnut Street. He wanted us to make sure that we were not that sheltered and that we could communicate with people. Because as she mentioned, he was a people person and he wanted to pass that on to us. So our experience started on Walnut Street for me.
What are some of the memories that you have about the photography studio?
My name is Floyd Mazer.
Go ahead, Floyd.
Okay, some of the memories I have from Mr. Johnson's studio, I remember that he took all our portraits. And one thing I remember about him when I got a little older, when he was taking our pictures, he always used to say, you know, before you get your picture taken, he asked you, were you ready? And you would say yes. And he would look through the camera and say, going, and poof, gone.
He used to come and take church pictures at the church for special occasions and anniversaries. But then even more so in school, from the time of first grade on at Southside Elementary, he was the person that was designated to do all our photography work, going through elementary all the way up through junior high. Even when we went through integration over at the school on, I think that's Columbia Street, he was also coming in there as well as the other white photographers. And I guess because things began to start opening up, that they started allowing a black photographer to come in as well. So he actually did some pictures there.
We were brought up in church to go to church every Sunday. If you partied on Saturday, you have to be in church Sunday morning, and to go to church for Wednesday afternoons also for Bible study. But we learned socialization skills there. We learned how we were supposed to act as black people, and how we were supposed to just try to get across or get a way or around, you know, different confrontations or things that we had through Sunday school lessons that would come up. There was a teachable moments in those.
Yeah, I remember they used to have a cafe there, a couple of cafes. One was Samuel Alston, you know, and we used to go there on Friday nights, and he had really good chicken sandwiches, you know, at the time. And he had pretty good food, and we used to also, it was a cafe named Dreamlands, I think it was. They also had really good food, and it was a nice place to, you know, take your family out and eat. And the prices was reasonable at that time, you know. And they also had something called the Teenager Club, and they had the best bologna sandwiches you ever want to taste. You know, I don't know how they fixed it, but on Friday nights and Saturday nights, that was the place to get a nice bologna sandwich, as I remember.
This is Felicia Petty Smith, and I would like to add that I remember Mr. Johnson taking the pictures for the Alpha Phi Alphas. He was an alpha man, and also for the Nancy E. Prophet Federated Club, and also for my family. But I always would enjoy going to his studio and seeing the pictorial history that he had lined up in his studio.
There was always a man in our town that was concerned about baseball. This man's name was Beauchamp. And I said, he must have had a name. I kept asking Phyllis, I asked your dad what's his name. I don't want to get up in front of a crowd and call the man Beauchamp. I said, I don't even know how to spell it. So I called everybody that I could call. And I'm going to find out his name before we leave.
I am James Bell III. I am here, one of the youngest Helena Ravens with this team. I played baseball really all my life, ever since I was about 6 years old. And we always would hear about baseball. but we never did have anyone that we could look up to until I heard of a young man named Ollie Brantley. Ollie Brantley. And, you know, that just sent chills through your body when you finally found out that, hey, we had some black folks up in the league that played some ball too. So I just wanted to be like Ollie Brantley. And here he is. I can put my hands on him. I had dealings with him. And he has taught me a lot, from playing baseball on into refereeing. So I'll let Ollie talk a little bit.
I never played with the team here in Helena. At that time, I was away playing professional baseball. I'm quite older than these young men here. I did start out in Lexi, in a small town at Southland, they called, and a man by the name of Henry Roach had a team in 1948. I guess I was about 15 then. They called it Southland Sluggers. That's where I first got started. And after I started out there, I started attending high school over in Eliza Miller, up in the Hollow with old Eliza Miller. So during the summer, I would play baseball with a man by the name of Bo Change in West Helena. He was down there in, I guess, a little honky-tonk place like where he sold beer or whatever. But he'd have me pitching. He'd give me maybe 50 cents or $1 or something to come play. But it wasn't with this team. It was a semi-pro team at that time. And that's where I got started in baseball. And then later, the night I was going to graduate, they had a man come from the Memphis Red Sox, the Negro League. And during that time in the White League, they wasn't letting any blacks in to play. They said it was discrimination, you know, you couldn't play. And this man came up and he was talking to me, and I said, well, I don't know, I'm planning on trying to go to college. So Mr. Hamlin told me and said, look, that's a good opportunity for you, son. You know, I'd always ally with him. He'd always advise me like a mentor. He said, you go ahead. You might be one of baseball one day. You might be a famous man. So I played 3 years with the Memphis Red Sox, the Negro League, and they started signing black ball players in the White League. So, you know, they signed Jackie Robinson in 1948, and he went to the Dodgers. They just did few up at that time. So, and I know they was scouting me, and I always relied on Mr. Hamlin about what to do. He said, if they want to sign you, let them go ahead and sign you. So the White Sox purchased my contract from the Memphis Red Sox. I don't know what kind of terms they got, but they got a lot of money for us at that time. But they gave me a bonus of $5,000, but an incentive bonus. They were to sign with them. So when I signed with them, they admitted a farm club up in Wisconsin. And I got up in Wisconsin with no black people lived at all. So they had a storage house outside, you know, for me to live. They had 8 teams in the league, and every town we go in, they had that storage house. So I'd be in there, and I would just didn't know what to do, you know. Every morning I'd wake up, there'd be about 150 kids waiting for me to get up and come outside, and they'd be looking and say, what is he? He look like we either got arms and stuff. They say, well, he black, what is wrong with him? So the landlady said, he colored. And I said, well, why don't they wash him up? You know, why he black like this? They don't burn him and all this. You know, they just backing up. They say, shake hands with him. They just backing up with me. And she said, he colored. Well, man, there's a lot of pressure on me. You know, I didn't really know if I was going to stay or not. But Mr. Hamlin always, I'd call him, he'd tell me, say, stay, you know, stay on, you know. But the big brass or the White Sox, you know, they would be there when I pitched. And I couldn't play with them during the day, either work out with them. I had to work out with the manager. And the manager was discouraging me, you need to go back and play in the black league. It was just too tough for you up here. And I wouldn't say nothing, I didn't know what to say. But when I pitched, you know, the brass would come to Chicago, and they would be there, and they'd holler, don't let that black boy, don't let that nigga, don't let him strike you out, don't do this, and all this. And they were swinging at any ball I throw. Some over the head, some in the dirt, so I struck out 20 and 21 men.